Part 5. Doomsday Special Forces. Author, Huanjing Chengzhu. Chapter 41. After almost a night of carnival, at dawn, the Green Island camp finally fell into silence. Wang Feng and a group of strengtheners stood at the entrance of the camp. Okay, madman. The gas is full. It's not a problem to run back and forth to Jianguantown. You mentioned. Zhao Taihan drove over an off-road vehicle and said after jumping out. Thank you, Wang Feng said with a smile, I'll leave the camp to you. Also, don't forget to arrange some rooms. According to my understanding of Lazy Eye, this guy might bring you a lot of women and children. Ha 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 ha. Don't worry. Keep it with me, Zhao Taihan said, patting his chest. I'm leaving. Wang Feng turned around and looked at Lu Wanting and said softly, wait for me to come back. Lu Wanting threw herself into Wang Feng's arms, hugged him hard, then took a step back, stared into his eyes, nodded and whispered softly, I'm waiting for you. Wang Feng looked at Lu Wanting. After a while, he suddenly smiled, reached out and touched Lu Wanting's head, then turned around and shouted, let's go. Watching Wang Feng's car go away and gradually disappear from sight, Lu Wanting took a deep breath, turned around and said loudly, okay. Taihan stays on duty, and everyone else goes to rest. In 2 hours, we will set up camp and disperse. Everyone was stunned for a moment, then responded loudly, yes. Zhao Taihan looked at Lu Wanting's leaving back with a smile on his face and murmured, ha ha. The madman is gone. Our female man is back again. Then he turned around and climbed up the sentry tower and picked up the sentry tower. I could not put it down and looked at the sniper rifle on it again and again. Wang Feng found an excuse to drive out alone in the middle of his drinking last night. He came back about an hour later. When he came back, he took a bunch of guns and ammunition from the car and let them choose for themselves. Zhao Taihan was close and was the first to grab the heavy sniper rifle. Although the recoil of this heavy sniper rifle and the loud sound when it was fired meant that the gun was not used highly before the end of the world, because without a strong body would not be able to pick up this heavy sniper weighing 36 kilograms. In addition, the first test firing of this heavy sniper broke the shoulder bone of an elite sniper in the army when it came out. It makes people think that this gun is a gun used for suicide. However, because it is so super due to its long range and ultra-high accuracy, some long-range snipers are still willing to equip this heavy sniper, and this heavy sniper is therefore named, severely injured, because whoever uses it will be injured, and it is very heavy. While Zhao Taihan was playing with his serious injury, in the car driven by Wang Feng, Qiu Jian and Chen Shaoan were following 3 children in the back seat, staring at each other. The one brother Feng? These 3 little ones are. Chen Shaoan finally couldn't help but ask after looking at it for a long time. They will be my personal bodyguards from now on, Wang Feng said with a smile. What? Personal bodyguard? Chen Shaoan and Qiu Jian looked at these 3 children who looked to be less than 20 years old together, and then looked at each other, both feeling a little stupid. That's right. Personal guard. Ha 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 ha, Wang Feng laughed loudly. These 3 little guys are naturally the 3 children who were locked up in the 2-legged sheep warehouse before. Last night, Wang Feng found an excuse to go out and took out the firearms in the apocalypse space and distributed them to everyone in the camp. After that, I casually walked around the camp, but accidentally discovered these 3 little guys hiding in a corner secretly eating raw chicken. After seeing Wang Feng, the 3 children did not show any panic, but looked at him with admiration and gratitude. Wang Feng felt interesting, so he walked up to the 3 children. Little guys, why don't you go over there to eat? Wang Feng squatted down and asked, and it's easy for you to eat raw food. At this point, Wang Feng suddenly stopped. Originally, he wanted to say eat. This is easy to cause diarrhea, but thinking about the scenes he saw of children lying on the ground catching ants to eat after the apocalypse, He couldn't help but say no more. In this miserable apocalypse, children are the most easily forgotten group of people. It's good that they can have something to eat. I don't know how many children starved to death and were later discovered by other hungry survivors. And as food. In this world where there is no order, no morality, and everything is based on survival, the vulnerable group of children has always been ignored, because they cannot make any contribution and can only consume resources. It is better to have parents to take care of them. Once the parents, an accident happened and they were abandoned, and they could only hope that their death would not be painful. The three children looked at each other, and the middle child spoke. He took a step forward and faced Wang Feng, with tears in his eyes. "Big brother. Thank you for helping my father avenge his revenge." As soon as he finished speaking, the three children knelt down on the ground in unison and kowtowed 3 times to Wang Feng. The three children did not stand up after kowtowing. They just knelt in front of Wang Feng. Due to the excessive force just now, blood oozed from the foreheads of the 3 little guys. Wang Feng looked at these 3 little guys in acquiescence. He could have stopped these 3 little guys just now, but he saw the persistence in these little guys' eyes, so he just squatted there quietly. "Come on. Sit down and tell me how you got here, isn't it?" Wang Feng sat on the ground, and then said gently to the 3 little guys. He only saw these 3 little boys in the entire Black Wolf camp. The other children were all over 8 years old and all girls. The little guy in the front looked at the 2 brothers behind him, nodded, and then stood up and sat next to Wang Feng. The other 2 little guys followed suit and sat over. "We are 3 brothers, born together." The leading child took a bite of the raw chicken in his hand and said while chewing. About half an hour later, Wang Feng finally understood the origins of the 3 children. These 3 little guys are triplets, 8 years old this year. When the end of the world happened, their mother unfortunately mutated and was killed by their father. Since then, they have been with their father. Coincidentally, their father's surname is also Wang, called Wang Changtian, a retired veteran with good physical fitness. Wang Changtian led the 3 brothers to flee all the way, and they were chased by more than a dozen zombies on the way. Because the 3 of them could not run fast, their father simply turned back to kill the dozen zombies and luckily became an enhancer. After becoming enhancers, their lives seemed to become easier, because enhancers in the early days of the apocalypse were more popular in any camp, but because of the 3 of them, Wang Changtian had to take the 3 brothers away from one camp after another for various reasons, and join one camp after another. This situation lasted for half a year until they came to the Black Wolf camp. After knowing their purpose, Black Wolf happily let them join the camp, but within 2 days, when Wang Changtian discovered the darkness of this camp, Wang Changtian, who was a soldier, was furious. After killing 2 fighters who were raping an 8 or 9-year-old girl on the spot, Black Wolf showed his hideous face. Wang Changtian, who was just a first-level enhancer, was no match for Black Wolf. After Black Wolf cut off one of his thighs, he hung it in the warehouse, and then the 3 of them were also locked up in the warehouse. Perhaps because they were too young to be easily killed by being hung there, which made them unsuitable for storage, they were given special treatment and were only chained, not hung up. In that hell on earth, they saw their father being cut into pieces and taken away in 4 days. The day after Wang Changtian's limbs were all cut off, He Lang came to the warehouse. He carefully avoided the filth and maggots on the ground and came to the dying Wang Changtian. He proudly told Wang Changtian that he was indeed an enhancer and his meat was very tough and chewy. After finally telling Wang Changtian that his children would soon go down to see him, He Lang reached out and pulled Wang Changtian off the hook alive, and then carried him out. Since then, they have never seen their father again. On the 2nd day after Wang Changtian's death, the triangular-eyed man came in and told the 3 brothers that Black Wolf wanted to eat some fresh meat, so it was their turn today. Because they were small, Black Wolf decided to eat the whole thing. So the leading child took the initiative to come out. He looked back at his two brothers without much sadness in his eyes, because he knew that the two brothers could only live a few days longer than him at most, and soon their family would be reunited underground. Just as he was washed and prepared for processing, Xiao Wu arrived, bringing the news of the Green Island camp's request for help. Black Wolf, who was preparing to eat, heard that Lu Wanting agreed to his request. The lustful Black Wolf didn't care about eating and ordered him to be locked up and then set off with his men. After that, they waited for Wang Feng and the others. When they saw those cannibal demons who had turned their father into pieces of food were hung on the wall in the same way one by one, and when they were cut off and howled, the three little guys were extremely grateful to these people. Because of the training in the apocalypse, and Wang Changtian's teachings in the past 6 months, the minds of these three little guys are no longer 8-year-old children. They observed the words and expressions on the side and soon realized that the person who made these decisions was Wang Feng, and Wang Feng also cut off the limbs of their biggest enemy, the Black Wolf, and then chopped it into pieces. Their experience made them no longer trust anyone, but Wang Feng helped them get revenge, and because he had the same surname as them, they felt an inexplicable intimacy with Wang Feng, so they were willing to tell Wang Feng about their own things. This was also the first time they spoke since Wang Changtian's death. Doomsday Special Forces. Author, Huanjing Chengzu. Chapter 42. After listening to the little guy's story, Wang Feng was silent for a long time. He now has a headache about the arrangements for these three little guys. After such an experience, the psychology of these three little guys will definitely be greatly distorted. If we fail to guide them properly, 3 murderers may appear in the future. Wang Feng didn't want to train 3 more murderous maniacs after Xiao Wu, but who should he find to educate these 3 little guys? Now that the Green Island camp has just been moved here, Lu Wanting and the others are too busy themselves. How can they have the time and energy to persuade these 3 little guys? What's more, whether these 3 little guys are willing to talk to Lu Wanting and the others is a question. As for himself, he is even more exhausted. He has to leave tomorrow, and it is even more impossible to take them with him. It is not a good idea to leave them here. Look at them. The way they looked made it clear that they would not be able to integrate into this camp. For a moment, Wang Feng felt that his head was about to explode. Only now did he remember that it would be great if Duanlei was by his side. With his smart mind, he would definitely be able to come up with a good solution. As if seeing Wang Feng's dilemma, the little guy who had been talking took the initiative to speak. "Brother, let us follow you. We won't cause you any trouble. Follow me. I'm leaving here tomorrow, and the place I'm going to is very dangerous." Wang Feng looked at the little guy seriously. "We are not afraid. You avenged us and saved us. My father said that if you receive kindness from others, you must repay it, otherwise you are not worthy of being a human being." The little guy looked even more serious than Wang Feng. Then, hearing the words of the child, Wang Feng's heart moved. Since he still knows how to listen to his father, there may be another way. Then I can find a sister to teach you first, okay? When you grow up, I can help. It's my job to repay the favor. No, the little guy shook his head firmly. Why? Wang Feng started to have a headache again. Because we don't believe her. The little guy still shook his head. But she is a good person. Wang Feng continued to have a headache. Dad said, don't be a good person, because being a good person will not last long. As a result, he did it himself, so he died. There was no longer much sadness in the little guy's eyes. Wang Feng was stunned. He remembered that Duanlei had said to him that we should be good people, but we should be good people while living. The words of this little guy were so similar. Except for you. We don't trust anyone, the little guy said firmly, and then closed his mouth, seeming to tell Wang Feng that he did not intend to tangle with Wang Feng on this issue anymore. Then why do you believe me? Wang Feng was a little curious. The little guy began to refuse to speak. Wang Feng covered his face with his hands. After thinking carefully for a while, he raised his head and looked at the little guy in front of him. Okay. You can follow me, but you must remember one thing. You must obey my orders. You are not allowed to do anything I don't ask you to do, otherwise, I will drive you away directly, and in serious cases, I will even kill you directly. At the end of the sentence, Wang Feng's expression suddenly became stern. Unexpectedly, the little guy in front of him didn't hesitate at all. He raised his head and looked at Wang Feng, and uttered one word clearly, okay. Okay. It's settled then. Remember. No matter what the order is. Even if I ask you to leave me and run away, you must do it. Understand, Wang Feng emphasized again. Understood, the answer was still short and clear. Okay. What are your names? Wang Feng asked a little discouraged. The three little guys looked at each other, and the one on the left spoke first, Wang Shat. Wang Lu, this is the one on the right. Wang Mi, this is what Wang Feng has been talking to. Hearing these three names, Wang Feng felt a sense of powerlessness come over him again. He understood that these could not be the real names of these three little guys. From the names they changed to themselves, it could be seen that they would be different in the future. Attitude towards life. But there is nothing they can do about Wang Feng for the time being. Fortunately, they have at least promised to obey his orders in the future and have their own constraints. I hope they will not become murderous monsters in the future. Where do you live? Wang Feng asked. Here, Wang Mi pointed to a room with an open window next to it. Let's go in, Wang Feng said and climbed directly into the room along the window. The room was not big, only about 10 square meters. In addition to a large bed, there were only two small bedside tables. After the three little guys climbed in through the window, Wang Feng ordered Tiankai to synthesize 3 agility-increasing liquids in his mind, and then took them out and handed them to Wang Mi. The three of you lie down on the bed first, then each of you drinks one, and then wait for me here. You should have gained some strength when I set out tomorrow. Then you can find a way to follow me out of the camp. Don't let others find out, just treat this as my first test for you. Hearing Wang Feng's words, Wang Mi's eyes suddenly lit up. Then he took the strengthening liquid and climbed onto the bed with his two younger brothers without saying a word. After each of them drank a strengthening liquid, they lay down obediently. Okay. At least they are really obedient. Wang Feng shook his head helplessly and thought to himself. After watching quietly for a while, Tiankai made sure that there was no problem with the strengthening process of these three little guys, and then left the room. When Wang Feng left with Qiu Jian and Chen Shaoan the next morning, he did not deliberately look for the three little guys, but drove away directly. When the car drove out 15 kilometers, Wang Feng stopped the car, waited for a while and set off again. After driving more than 20 kilometers, he stopped again. He jumped out of the car and shouted to the car, "Come out." The three little guys crawled out from under the car one by one, 6 hands were covered with blood, and seeing Wang Feng's angry face, they all lowered their heads, as if they had done something wrong. "What is my order to you?" Wang Feng asked with a cold face. "Don't let others find out, and follow you out of the camp," Wang Mi whispered. "Did you do it?" Wang Feng asked sternly. The three little guys looked at each other and dared not say anything. "You did it? You should have come out when I stopped the car for the first time instead of hiding. Would you have kept hiding if I didn't call you? My order to you is to leave the camp. As long as you leave the camp, you will be successful and you can show up. You don't need to waste time and energy. Do you understand?" Wang Feng's face eased. "Got it." The three little guys stood at attention together and answered in a childish voice. "Get in the car." Wang Feng waved his hand to signal them to get in the car. He didn't ask them about the effect of taking the evolution liquid. Looking at their excited and grateful eyes and their ability to hold onto the chassis of the car for so long on this rugged road, it was obvious that the effect was still very good. After getting in the car, Wang Feng was obviously in a good mood. The eyes of the three little guys seemed very smart, not as wooden and lifeless as Wang Feng worried. However, after getting in the car, the three little guys began to remain silent again, sitting in the back seat of the car and observing the surroundings vigilantly. And through the rear-view mirror, Wang Feng discovered a very interesting thing. Only one of the three little guys was observing the surroundings at the same time, like a sentinel, and the other two closed their eyes at this time. And when the sentinel closed his eyes, one of the other two would always open his eyes at the same time to take over, and the connection in the middle was simply perfect. It seems that this is the telepathy of multiple births, Wang Feng thought. Qiu Jian and Chen Shaoan were also very surprised to see the three little guys. Since Chen Shaoan came to the New Green Island camp later, he had never seen these three little guys, let alone Qiu Jian. They saw Wang Feng stop the car inexplicably, and then these three children who looked only 6 years old came out from under the car. And the three little guys didn't say a word after getting in the car, just like three old monks. At least even in the end of the world, Qiu Jian and Chen Shaoan had never seen such honest children. After getting Wang Feng's answer, Chen Shaoan and Qiu Jian became even more confused, but Wang Feng had no reason to lie to them, so the identities of the three children became more and more mysterious in their guesses. Considering their appearance and the steadiness they showed now, which was seriously inconsistent with their age, Chen Shaoan basically determined that the three little guys were real masters, but in order to hide their identities, they used the extraordinary skill of shrinking bones and turned into children to hide their identities. He couldn't help but admire Wang Feng and looked at him with admiration. Wang Feng naturally didn't know Chen Shaoan's crazy thoughts. What he wanted now was to hurry back. At that time, he was captured by the giant bird. Lu Feng and others saw it clearly and probably believed that he was dead. If that was the case, Lazy Eye and others might be in trouble. Fortunately, when they went to cause trouble, Taizu and Yunfei should have become enhancers, and Duan Lei's mind should not have any problems. Wang Feng stepped on the accelerator to the bottom, and the off-road vehicle sped along, bringing up clouds of dust that lingered for a long time. At this moment, Duan Lei was really in trouble, but this trouble was not brought to him by Lu Feng. At this time, Lu Feng seemed to have become Duan Lei's helper, standing with him, looking at the large group of people walking towards them. As for why Lu Feng stood on the same front with Duan Lei, and who were the people who came to cause trouble, that started from the time when Wang Feng was captured. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Doomsday Special Forces. Author, Huanjing Chengzhu. Chapter 43. When the giant bird pounced on Lu Feng also felt it, but he was in mid-air at the time and had nowhere to hide. He could only watch the giant bird's gleaming claws attack him. And Wang Feng rushed out from the billboard, forcing the giant bird to change direction. Naturally, he could clearly see the few seconds until Wang Feng was captured by the giant bird. He watched the giant bird grasping the person whose life and death were unknown. Wang Feng gradually went away, and Lu Feng's eyes were very complicated. After landing on the ground, Lu Feng stared blankly at the hurricane-armored vehicle driven by Wang Feng without saying a word. After a long time, Lu Feng suddenly turned around and shouted to his people, "Get in the car. Go back to the camp." Lu Feng's motorcade headed towards the Taikang camp. Lu Feng drove Wang Feng's hurricane. He was the only one in the car. He did not allow others to get in the car. After returning to the camp, Lu Feng's face kept looking very sad. Gloomy. The bald man who was once scared to death by Duan Lei could not see clearly the situation. He leaned forward to congratulate Lu Feng on getting a good car. However, Lu Feng slapped him with a backhand and rolled him to the ground, spitting out 2 pills. Teeth. Lu Feng returned to his room, only to reappear nearly an hour later, carrying 2 large bags on his back, and walked to the Hurricane armored vehicle. After throwing the bags into the car, he turned around and shouted, "Everyone gather." All the members of the expedition team at Taikang Camp quickly came to Lu Feng. Lu Feng looked at the faces of these people one by one. After thinking for a while, he exhaled and said, "Guya. Find a car and go to the car together, will follow me." "Yes." Head, a dark-skinned young man in his mid-20s replied angrily, then turned and ran away. "Others, listen up. Immediately mobilize everyone in the camp, pack their things, and prepare to evacuate," Lu Feng said with a solemn expression as he looked at the people in front of him. Wow, as soon as Lu Feng finished speaking, the people below exploded into the camp and spoke one after another. "Boss. Are we moving? Why? Isn't it nice here? There are too many of us. Moving is very troublesome. What should we do if we encounter a wave of corpses on the road? The construction here is very good. Aren't you going to cause trouble if you move again?" "Shut up," Lu Feng yelled, and the crowd suddenly became quiet. Lu Feng looked at them with a livid face and said, "I won't stop anyone who wants to stay and die. Believe me, prepare to go with me. Pack your things and inform everyone in the camp of the news people." "Captain. What did you see above?" Fang Jiaojiao couldn't help but ask. At that time, they only saw the bird and Wang Feng being captured by the bird below. They didn't know anything about the mutated zombies in Jianguan town. "Known. I saw nearly 100,000 zombies and their leaders," Lu Feng said. "When a wise zombie leads hundreds of thousands of zombies to attack us, who else among you will think that our camp is safe? Smart zombies. Really? How can zombies be intelligent? 100,000 zombies. Even without that damn zombie leader, we can't stop it, right? What should I do? Run away quickly? Where are you running? Is there no other place here? Then what should we do?" At this time, ordinary people in the camp were also attracted by them and gathered around them. When they heard Lu Feng mentioning that there were more than 100,000 zombies gathering in Jianguan town, they couldn't help but have pale faces. They just felt that this time they might be afraid there was no escape, and some people even turned around and went to pack their things. Looking at the people in front of him, Lu Feng felt agitated. He deliberately exaggerated the amount of losses because he wanted these guys to make a decision quickly. Who knew that after hearing the news, this group of people actually started talking about it? Could it be that do we still need to hold a meeting to discuss this kind of thing? I've said it all. Believe it or not. I still said the same thing. If you want to leave with me, get ready immediately. If you don't want to leave, do it yourself. Guya. Let's go." Lu Feng turned around and stepped onto the Hurricane, then the car started. Goya quickly drove an off-road vehicle to follow. After the apocalypse, off-road vehicles are more popular because of their high chassis and good visibility. The Hurricane was speeding all the way, heading towards Wuhan where Duanlei and the others were. Lu Feng looked at the Hurricane with envy while driving. Not only was it super strong in defense, but most importantly, its power was almost unlimited. In this apocalyptic world, it had such an armored vehicle can increase the chance of survival by at least 50%. However, Lu Feng did not want to swallow this Hurricane. His intuition told him that Wang Feng was not dead and might come back soon. Before that, he had to tell Duanlei the news and ask what is Duanlei's future path. Duanlei was also his team member before, and Lu Feng still believed in Duanlei's vision. It was just that Duanlei was too smart and saw his disguise, which led to the current situation. Now Wang Feng's incident may be an opportunity for Lu Feng to repair the relationship between them. For himself, Lu Feng did not feel that he had done anything wrong. In order to survive, no matter what he did, he could not be said to be wrong. Should he put himself in danger for the sake of the so-called justice and morality, and then let others people say that their life is glorious and their death is great? Bullshit. Whether he is famous for eternity or infamy for eternity, it doesn't matter to the dead man. He is already dead anyway, so just scold him. Do dead people get angry? So what if it is praised by thousands of people? Will you still sneeze after you die? Lu Feng's apocalyptic principle is very simple, there is only one: I want to survive. After arriving in Wuhan, Lu Feng met Duan Lei. Because Lu Feng was driving a hurricane this time and Duan Lei didn't have the power of the sky eye, Lu Feng was able to drive directly to the door of the farmer's house where Duan Lei and the others were temporarily staying. Duan Lei was standing at the window on the third floor this time. He looked down at Lu Feng, who came out of the hurricane, frowning. The situation in front of him was beyond Duan Lei's understanding. Although Wang Feng had forgiven Lu Feng, the reason why he was not killed was because Wang Feng was thinking about the survivors in the Taikang camp. From Duan Lei's understanding, it was impossible for Wang Feng to accept Lu Feng, and Lu Feng's skills could not pose any threat to Wang Feng. So how did the hurricane get into Lu Feng's hands? Lu Feng didn't let Duan Lei guess for too long. He directly told the answer: the madman was caught by a big bird, and it was on the billboard in the service area. Lu Feng looked up at Duan Lei. He opened his arms, as if he wanted to show the size of the bird, but when he looked at the distance between his open arms, he shook his head and gave up, and moved his hands towards where Duan Lei was. He pointed at the 3-story building and said, "It's probably a bird as big as this house." Duan Lei tilted his head, frowned, and looked up. He didn't understand what Lu Feng said. A house as big as a bird? So is it still a bird? That's a whale. Looking at Duan Lei's expression, Lu Feng shook his head and sighed, "I know this is hard to accept. In fact, this is the first time I have seen such a big bird. Anyway, believe it or not, the madman was captured by that bird. If there is such a big bird, the madman is probably no more than a small insect in front of him, right? Why doesn't it eat him in one bite and take him back?" Duan Lei asked with a frown. "Don't ask me about this. I don't know either." Lu Feng shook his head, "and that bird's original target was me. The madman was captured by the bird in order to save me." Duan Lei was stunned when he heard Lu Feng's words, then shook his head and smiled bitterly, "This idiot. Maybe it would be better if you spoke softer." Lu Feng shook his head and smiled bitterly after hearing Duan Lei's words. "Come in and talk." Duan Lei nodded to Lu Feng, then turned and went downstairs. "You stay in the car." Lu Feng turned to go in the off-road vehicle behind him and said, and then entered the farmer's house. "After we left here, we went to the place where the madman asked me to go, because I thought that since the madman didn't kill me, he wouldn't lie to me. Later, the madman also came." When Lu Feng and Duan Lei were there after sitting down at the square table, Lu Feng recounted everything that happened in the service area. After Lu Feng finished speaking, Duan Lei raised his right hand, supported his cheek with his thumb, and gently rubbed his chin with the other 4 fingers. He tapped his left hand unconsciously on the table, and frowned into a Chuan character. Lu Feng looked at Duan Lei without saying a word, just waiting quietly. "You're here to do more than just send the car back, right?" Duan Lei thought for a while and finally spoke. "I came here to bring the car back, and also to ask you, how should we deal with the zombie in Jianguan town?" Lu Feng made no secret of his purpose. "Deal with him," Duan Lei smiled bitterly, "you have already said that the madman said that he is no match for that guy. Now that the madman is missing again, who is going to deal with him? Then what should we do? Do we have to give up here?" Lu Feng was a little unwilling. "That's right. We can only give up." Duan Lei nodded, then stood up and walked to the door, looking up at the sky with his hands behind his back. "Now we have 2 methods. First, pack up immediately and then evacuate. This is the safest method. Basically anyone who wants to run can run away. The second one is a bit troublesome, and it's most likely thankless. Du Enlai turned around and looked at Lu Feng. Let's notify all the camps near Jianguan town and let them be prepared to escape, and then all camps will be the people gathered together, formed a large force, and evacuated together, gathering all the reinforcements to retreat. Evacuate together, Lu Feng thought for a moment. There are dozens of large and small camps near Jianguan town, with thousands of people in large and hundreds of people in small ones. In total, there are hundreds of thousands of people. At that time, is it possible to come up in time? According to what the madman said and the intelligence you just brought back, we should have at least a week, so time is not a big problem. Du Enlai shook his head and said. Then why do you say this is more troublesome and thankless? Lu Feng was a little surprised. Doomsday Special Forces. Author, Huanjing Chengzhu. Chapter 44. People's Heart. Du Enlai looked at Lu Feng. Think about it, if I go to Taikang camp and tell you that a large number of zombies are going to attack here and ask you to evacuate quickly, what will you think? Lu Feng stood up suddenly, just opened his mouth when he was about to speak. After a moment, he sat back decadently and said softly, I will think that you are coveting my camp, want to trick us away, and then rob our resources. What will you do? It is very likely that I will catch you, torture you, and force you to tell which camp sent you. After Lu Feng finished speaking, he looked at Du Enlai. So this second way doesn't work. My previous advice to Crazy was to let him notify those camps, and if it doesn't work, just show his identity as an evolver, but unfortunately now. Du Enlai shook his head and sighed. Forget it. Then I will notify them all once. It depends on them whether they believe it or not. Lu Feng stood up suddenly. You should also prepare. It's better to leave quickly. Du Enlai was stunned and looked at Lu Feng. What? Didn't expect me to make this decision? Lu Feng laughed at himself. That's right. I really didn't expect it. I thought you would leave without saying a word, and then gather all the valuable people in the camp and start running away. Du Enlai answered bluntly. Well, I did do this before, but after the madman saved me. Lu Feng suddenly lowered his head and was silent for a while, then raised his head and smiled. If I am the only one left in this world, I guess I won't live too long. It's better to have more people, at least it's lively. Don't you think so? Du Enlai stared at Lu Feng for a while, and suddenly laughed. That's right. At least when you are in danger again, there may be some fool to save you. After a pause, Du Enlai whispered, it seems that the madman saved more than just your life. Maybe. But I am basically the same as before. At least if the positions of me and the madman are swapped, I should not risk my life to save him. Lu Feng looked down at his palm and said. Ha ha. You have become honest, Du Enlai laughed. Anyway, I said I would save him, but you didn't believe me. Lu Feng shrugged. Not necessarily, Du Enlai shook his head. No one is sure what they will do unless it really comes to that moment. Maybe the madman's original intention is not to save you, but just an instinctive reaction. It's better not to let me experience such a thing again. I don't really want to know what my reaction is. Lu Feng shook his head. Okay. The car is sent back to you. I have to go back and prepare. I'll leave first. Wait. Or can you do me a favor? Du Enlai raised his right hand and made a blocking gesture. What favor? Lu Feng stopped. You two come down, Du Enlai shouted behind Lu Feng. With the sound of footsteps coming down the stairs, Taizu and Yunfei appeared in front of Lu Feng. Seeing the two people, Lu Feng was stunned. He didn't know Yunfei, but he was very familiar with Taizu. He had seen him when he first came here in the morning. Why did he feel that this kid was different after just a few hours? He. This silly boy is lucky. When he was cleaning up the village just now, he found a few zombies, which made him an enhancer. Du Enlai said with a smile. He knew that Lu Feng would definitely not believe it, but he would not ask any more questions. Really? That's really lucky. Congratulations, Lu Feng nodded. Hee hee. Captain Lu, Taizu showed his signature silly smile. Taizu, you know him. The other one is called Yunfei. He is a first-level enhancer picked up by a madman on the road. Duan Lei pointed at Yunfei and smiled. Picked up? Or an enhancer? Lu Feng's smile was a little stiff. He cursed Duan Lei in his heart. He couldn't make up a more realistic lie. Isn't this too fake? Enhancers can be picked up on the road. I want you to help with these two people. I hope you can take them with you when you go to those camps. I will let them pull 2 carts of food and follow you to those camps to do some business. Duan Lei may have found that his words were too fake, so he quickly changed the subject. What? Business? This time Lu Feng was really surprised. Well, I want them to use food to exchange for some children and women who they think are burdens from those camps, Duan Lei said. Children should be no problem, women. Lu Feng hesitated. Not the kind of young and beautiful ones, ordinary women will do, mainly to let them take care of the children. Duan Lei understood that Lu Feng had misunderstood, and quickly added. You just said that they are burdens, especially in this situation. Why are you still taking in these burdens when you are about to run away? Lu Feng looked at Duan Lei carefully, as if trying to see something from his expression. Don't guess. This is what I discussed with the madman before. We have no other purpose, we just want to do our part for the inheritance of mankind. If there is no next generation, is there any hope for the future of our human race? Duan Lei said with a somewhat gloomy look. Lu Feng stared at Duan Lei in a daze, and after a while he suddenly laughed up to the sky. Ha 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 ha. Good. 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 Now I understand why the madman and you looked at me with some pity in your eyes just now. He looked into Duan Lei's eyes and said self-deprecatingly, I didn't expect you to have such a long-term vision and think of the continuation of human civilization. In your eyes, I may just be a poor guy struggling to survive in this doomsday. Duan Lei looked at Lu Feng calmly and did not answer. Okay. Just for your idea, I will definitely help you, Lu Feng said heroically, then turned back and nodded to Taizu and Yunfei. Let's go. 2 lucky little guys. Just after walking out of the door, Lu Feng stopped again, looked back at Duan Lei and asked, Can I join you? I mean only I will join, without bringing anyone else. Join us? Duan Lei was a little surprised. Well, join you. Just be a soldier. I think your goal is big. Maybe after I have such a big goal, I will live a little happier in this doomsday. There was a trace of longing in Lu Feng's eyes. This, I can't make the decision. I have to wait for our captain to come back. Duan Lei hesitated and said. Do you also believe that the madman is not dead? Lu Feng's eyes lit up. A guy who can still jump around after being bitten by a zombie, I don't think he can do nothing with a little bird, Duan Lei said confidently, and then thought of something, also. Haha. That's right. Although the bird can't really be considered a little bird, I don't think that bird can really make the madman disappear forever, otherwise I really might not send this car back. Lu Feng couldn't help but look back at Hurricane. This is really a good car. It is indeed a good car, but you don't drive this out this time, Duan Lei said. Of course, driving this out to show off is undoubtedly asking for trouble. Lu Feng nodded in agreement. Okay. I'll be considered an extra staff member for the time being, and wait until the madman comes back. Now let me show off. After speaking, Lu Feng turned around and left without any hesitation. You two, each drive a big truck and follow him, and do what I told you to before. Duan Lei turned around and looked at Taizu and Yunfei. As long as it does not violate our principles, you can listen to him temporarily. Okay. I got it. Hee hee. Then Brother Lei, we will leave first. Taizu smiled foolishly and went out with Yunfei. Watching the 3 cars gradually go away, Duan Lei murmured, Is it really that easy for you to join? Lu Feng sat in the co-pilot of the SUV, staring blankly at the 2 cars behind him in the rear-view mirror. not knowing what he was thinking. As for the driver, Goya followed Lu Feng's instructions when he got on the car and drove to a camp they knew, and this camp was exactly where Yunfei was before. After watching Lu Feng and the others go away, Du Enlai turned around and went upstairs to Lu Jiang's room to take a look, then returned to his own residence, pulled a chair and sat in front of the window, staring blankly out the window, and said softly, "Damn it! It was lost again not even a day after I found it. I'm so worried." The night gradually fell, and the leaves were blown by the wind, making a rustling sound, coupled with the cry of jackdaws coming from nowhere. It was a bit scary. Du Enlai still sat in front of the window in that posture, with a severely injured sniper rifle equipped with a far-infrared laser sight next to him, and he just looked at the direction where Lu Feng and the others left calmly. He was not worried about the safety of Taizu and Yunfei. With Lu Feng, a third-level enhancer, there would be basically no problem unless they were desperate and went directly to Jianguan town to chat with the mutant zombie. As for Lu Feng, whether he really surrendered or not, he would not have any idea about these two guys. In Lu Feng's eyes, the value of these two guys must be less than that hurricane armored vehicle. The sky finally got completely dark, and the night enveloped the earth. Du Enlai did not turn on the lights. People in the end times must adapt to the darkness because there is no electricity. Of course, if you are not afraid of attracting zombies, you can also light a bonfire. The light of several car lights in the distance attracted Du Enlai's attention. He stood up, stretched his body, and then picked up the severely injured and put it on the window. He looked at the driver of the first car in the scope, and then put the sniper rifle back to its original place, because the driver in the first car was Yunfei. Haha. It seems that there should be some gains. Du Enlai showed a smile on his face, and then turned and went downstairs to prepare to greet them. When Yunfei and Taizu set off with Lu Feng, there were a total of 3 cars driving away, and now there are 4 cars coming back. Doomsday Special Forces. Author, Huanjing Chengzhu. Chapter 45. After parking the car in front of the house, Lu Feng was the first to jump out. He looked at Du Enlai with a strange expression and said, "I ran to 5 camps and received a total of 35 children, all under the age of 10. Yes, there are 10 women. Set them up first. We'll talk about other things later." Du Enlai saw Lu Feng's expression and knew there must be something else going on. "Taizu, you take half of the people to the house on the left, settle down their residence, and deal with it first tonight. Yunfei, you also take half of the people to the house on the right, and then you two stay there for protection." Them Du Enlai ordered Taizu and Yunfei, who had just gotten out of the car. The two agreed and took their people away. The children and women who came back from the exchange looked around in horror. Maybe they were people who were not taken seriously in the camps before and did not pay attention to Du Enlai's order. People questioned, but followed Taizu and Yunfei obediently. "Captain, where's me?" Goya ran to Lu Feng's side and asked. "It's up to you." Lu Feng waved his hand. "Okay. Then I'll go chat with him over at Taizu." Goya nodded and ran away. Seeing everyone entering their respective houses, Du Enlai shook his head at Lu Feng, and the two of them entered the house together. This time Du Enlai did not continue to sit down at the square table on the first floor, but he took Lu Feng directly to his room. After the two sat down, Du Enlai took out a tactical flashlight, turned it on and put it aside for lighting. All the zombies nearby have been summoned to Jianguan town, so there is no need to worry about the flashlight's light causing trouble. Later, Du Enlai took out some food and wine from his bedside table and placed it on the bedside table. "Tell me about it. What trouble did you encounter?" After that, he picked up a braised chicken leg and started eating it. "We encountered a little trouble at the first camp we went to. It is said to be the camp where Yunfei was before." Lu Feng picked up the wine and took a sip and said slowly, "I know that camp. There doesn't seem to be any powerful people." Du Enlai frowned. He naturally knew that camp. He belonged to Wang Feng. Duanlei remembered that camp, including their leader Ho Kun. There are only 3 first-level enhancers in total, which is not enough for Lu Feng to deal with alone. There is one more person there now, the butcher. Lu Feng's expression was very solemn. Butcher, Duanlei thought carefully and realized that he had never heard of this name. I know this person. This guy still had a camp when the apocalypse happened, but something happened later and the butcher left. This was before you arrived at the Taikang camp, Lu Feng said. The butcher was really a butcher before the end of the world. He was a local who sold pork in a market. He was tall and thick, with a sinister face. Basically, he would be questioned by the police whenever he met. After the apocalypse, the butcher and some people occupied their vegetable market. The butcher was very smart. He knew that although there were a lot of things in the vegetable market, they couldn't be stored for long, so he used it to win over those scattered people. A survivor, and he really won over a lot of people. Later, the butcher took more than 500 people he gathered to occupy a community and built it as his own camp. Because he was brave and dared to kill zombies, when he was cleaning up the community, this guy turned out to be an enhancer. After becoming an enhancer, this guy revealed his cruel nature and began to act as a local emperor in his own camp. He would do whatever he wanted with any woman he liked, including those with husbands. After he turned a pair of rebels after his young couple was tortured in public, no one in the camp dared to oppose him. But it didn't take long before the enhancers appeared again in their camp, and there were 2 of them. These 2 people, along with those who opposed the butcher in the camp, wanted to kill the butcher, and even the butcher's wife joined in. It's just that the butcher was originally strong, and coupled with the fear of the butcher in the hearts of those people, in the end they failed to kill the butcher, but forced the butcher to leave. The butcher also saw that he had committed public outrage, so he agreed to leave, but he mentioned one request, to take his wife away. Those people were probably eager to get rid of the butcher, the god of plague, so they happily handed over the butcher's wife who had been on the same side with them just now, so the butcher packed up his wife in front of them, and then left behind. I didn't expect that he would appear in Ho Kun's camp again after disappearing for so long. I don't know where Ho Kun found him. Moreover, the butcher is already a 2nd level enhancer. I might not be able to do that if I really try. It's easy to kill him. Duanlei frowned after hearing this, and after thinking for a while, he said, this butcher seems to be very cruel, but it is not without merit. At least he loves his wife very much, and even if his wife betrays him, he will still take her with him. If you leave, you can be considered a wife-loving person. After hearing what Duanlei said, Lu Feng looked at Duanlei with a strange expression, and then nodded, yeah. He loves his wife. His wife must be in pain because he packed up his wife and took her away, and her wife he was a bit fat, so he used 3 backpacks to take all his wives away. Duanlei looked at the chicken drumstick in his hand, and suddenly felt that he had lost his appetite. He threw away the drumstick, picked up a bottle of wine and took 2 sips. After putting it down, he let out a sigh of relief. Damn it! Why are you still doing this? Is there such a man? Our trouble now is, this butcher has some issues with me, and he also knows that we are here, so. Lu Feng looked at Duanlei. How did he know we were here? Duanlei stood up. That little guy named Yunfei is too young. Ho Kun pretended to be concerned and asked him where he lives now, and he casually said the name Wukan. Lu Feng said helplessly. Duanlei suddenly realized that he felt a little uncomfortable in the way Yunfei looked at him just now. It turned out that this was the reason. What do you think the butcher will do? Duanlei asked Lu Feng. There are so many people in the Taikang camp that he will definitely not dare to go, but that is not necessarily the case here. At least he will come here to take a look. When he finds out that there are just a few of us, he might lead others to cause trouble. Lu Feng, after thinking for a while, he said. You and him. Duanlei looked at Lu Feng. Actually, it's nothing. It's just that he wanted to join us after he was driven away, and he stayed with us for a few days. Later, after I heard about his deeds, I drove him away. Lu Feng shrugged. Shoulder, for us, this may not be a big deal, but when it comes to this guy, we'd better be prepared. If that's the case, we are really in a bit of trouble. Duan Lei stood up and came to the window, looking at the dark outside, and said softly, if that butcher is really like you said, maybe we can meet him soon. It's his turn. Duan Lei was right. On the evening of the next day, a convoy drove towards Wuhan in a mighty manner. Just as it entered the shooting range of serious injuries, Duan Lei shot and blew up the front row with a loud bang, car tires. From the incident where the butcher dismembered his wife, Duan Lei knew that the butcher was a man who was determined to take revenge, so when it first dawned today, Duan Lei was already ready to meet the butcher. But what surprised him was that it was almost dark before he could wait for his guest. It seemed that the butcher had made a lot of preparations for this visit. Duan Lei gathered everyone in a bus and asked Yunfei to act as the driver. As for Lu Qiang, he carried him into the hurricane. Tai Zhu also stayed in the car, and the two cars were driven to a distance from Wu, waiting in a wood some distance from the village. Duan Lei told Yunfei and Tai Zhu that they should keep observing this place with binoculars. If they see something wrong, they should leave immediately and come back to rescue them when Lu Qiang wakes up. Neither of them agreed until Duan Lei got angry. Then he nodded reluctantly. As for Go Ya, Lu Feng sent him back to the Taikang camp and notified them to be ready to evacuate at any time. Following Duan Lei's gunfire, the convoy stopped, but the people who got out of the car later surprised Duan Lei, because most of the people who got off were children and women. Then, they were beaten by some people holding armed men with firearms were driving towards the side. You're right. This guy is indeed very smart. Duan Lei sighed, put the gun aside, and turned back to Lu Feng and said, have you found anyone in his camp? No. I didn't want to make a deal with him after seeing him. I was afraid of spies. Lu Feng shook his head. It seems that he is planning to approach us under the guise of exchanging food. Duan Lei looked at the group of people again and said. Whatever. Shoot first and just hit the armed men, right? At least kill the butcher first, Lu Feng said through gritted teeth. I guess the butcher is the guy with the turban on his head, right? He is holding two women to block him. If I shoot, the women in front of him will also be injured. Duan Lei sighed. Don't you think those two women would have ended well if you didn't shoot them? Lu Feng shouted in a low voice. Of course not, but I bet you that the people this guy brought must be from other camps. Duan Lei said calmly. He must have spread the news that we would exchange grain for women and children, and brought them here. If I shoot, I don't know if the butcher can be killed by me, but we will definitely die. It's settled, and the people who come to exchange food can tear us into pieces without the butcher taking action, so I praise him for being smart. It seems now our trouble seems to be unsolvable. It's still too late for you to leave now. Duan Lei turned around and looked at Lu Feng and said seriously. You're not leaving? Lu Feng was a little surprised. I can't leave. If I leave, I will set fire to the Taikang camp, so, it's better for me to stay and wait for these customers. Duan Lei shook his head. Lu Feng walked to the window and stared at the approaching crowd, his face uncertain. Suddenly, he slapped his palm on the windowsill and shouted loudly, Grandma! I'm not leaving either. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Doomsday Special Forces. Author, Huanjing Chengzhu. Chapter 46. Duan Lei was greatly surprised. He looked at Lu Feng in surprise. Looking at Duan Lei's expression, Lu Feng laughed wildly, ha 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 ha. If I can see your expression like this, I'm not at a loss. Duan Lei suddenly smiled, is this what you pursue in life? Then he patted Lu Feng on the shoulder, go down and get ready for business. The crowd had entered Wukan, and Duanlei and Lufeng stood there quietly waiting. "Are you the guy who wants to trade food for children and women?" A strong man in his 30s pointed at Lufeng and asked. Lufeng looked at this guy and frowned. He should be a second-level enhancer. In this apocalypse, he was actually wearing a suit and leather shoes, with a big gold chain around his neck, and a submachine gun on his shoulder. On top, there is an eye patch over the left eye. This outfit is really awkward. "I'm the shopkeeper. If you have anything to say, just tell me." "He's just a little boy of mine," Duanlei said with a smile. "I can tell you. We have brought the man, how can we change it?" One eye of the one-eyed dragon squinted at Duanlei. "Aren't you from the same camp?" Duanlei asked. "No. We have several camps here. But I'm the representative, so just think of us as one camp, and tell me how to change them quickly. You brought too many people. We don't have enough supplies here. I'm afraid I'll have to trouble you to go to my camp to get food," Duanlei said with a smile. "Camp? Isn't this your camp?" The one-eyed dragon looked around. "Do you think this looks like a camp?" Duanlei asked. "Then where is your camp? Is it far away?" Cyclops asked impatiently. "Not far. It's just over an hour's drive." Duanlei pointed in the direction of the service area. Lufeng, who was on the side, was confused when he heard this, and he was wondering, do they really have a camp? At this time, it suddenly dawned on me when I saw the direction Duanlei was pointing, and I thought that was where it turned out to be. "Okay. Let's go then." One-eyed dragon waved his hand. "Let the people behind drive the car over and load the people on. It's not that simple, right? Are you just here to exchange for food and have nothing else to do?" Duanlei asked. The one-eyed dragon was stunned. "What else is there?" Duanlei glanced at the butcher. This guy had been silent since he arrived here, and he had been hiding behind the two women, appearing very cautious. Lufeng also spoke at this time. "Butcher. Stop hiding. Just figure out how to create a path." The one-eyed dragon looked back at the butcher with some doubts, and then at Duanlei and Lufeng. Suddenly he became furious, put down the gun on his shoulder, and pointed it at the butcher. "Grandma's bear. You bastard, you are so sentimental. Becoming a thug." The butcher quickly pushed away the woman beside him. The one-eyed dragon would not have any scruples about these two women, otherwise he would not trade them for food. "Brother Lee. Don't get me wrong, I just heard that they can trade for food. There are only a few people in our camp, so I just informed you. I really have no other intention. If you don't believe me, just ask Xiao Kun." Ho Kun also stood up quickly and said, "Brother Lee. How dare we play tricks in front of you? I just hope that you will change more food and give us some casually." Duanlei looked at them thoughtfully, and suddenly a smile appeared on his face. "Okay. This is Brother Lee, right? Maybe I'm overthinking it. Since there's nothing wrong, let's go get food." After hearing Duanlei's words, the one-eyed dragon turned to look at him. "Do you have enough food? Don't play tricks on me. Ha ha ha. Since we dare to exchange food for people, we must have the goods." Duanlei laughed. "Why are you still bothering? Hurry up and drive the car over." The one-eyed dragon looked back at the armed men and cursed. "I've never seen this guy before, but it seems like the butcher is a little afraid of him, and he's probably not a good person." "What should we do?" Lufeng asked Duanlei softly while the one-eyed dragon was cursing. "I'll take them away, and you stay. After we leave, you should be ready to evacuate. If the corpses come and I don't come back, you can leave first and don't worry about me," Duanlei whispered. "Group of corpses?" Lufeng was stunned. "Just do as I say, there's no time to explain now." After Duanlei said these words, he took a few steps forward and looked at the car that Cyclops and the others were driving. "This, Brother Lee," Duanlei pointed at the car driven by Cyclops and asked, "is your camp far from here?" Why do you ask this? One-eyed dragon looked at Duanlei warily. Oh. It's okay. What I mean is that your car is a bit infrequent. What will you do if you can't finish loading everything? Duanlei smiled. Do you have a lot of food? The one-eyed dragon's one eye began to shine. Well. We have two camps, one is where we usually live, and the other is where we store food. Do you know the service area in front of Jiangguan town? Duanlei asked. You damn thing don't want us to go there to pick up the goods, do you? One-eyed dragon was immediately furious. That's it? We have cleaned up there, and we have obtained the supplies there, but there are not so many of us and we can't use them all, so we want to use the supplies there in exchange for people. Duanlei nodded. Said very seriously. You said, all the zombies there are dead, the one-eyed dragon asked suspiciously. That's right. If you're not worried, you can send someone over to take a look first. Then there's no need. It's a waste of time. You can go with us. If you cheat me, I'll skin you alive bit by bit. The one-eyed dragon stared at Duanlei and said angrily. Okay. No problem. Seeing that you are also a straightforward person, I promise you that you can take as much as you can for the exchange this time, but we will receive people here, and you have to send them back to me when the time comes. Duanlei said without blinking. Send them back. The one-eyed dragon looked at the children and women. Yes. We will settle people here first, and then take them back to the camp after checking. Otherwise, if someone has an infectious disease, it will be troublesome. Duanlei explained. Oh. So that's it, the one-eyed dragon suddenly realized. Boss. All right. Let them get in the car. An armed man with a gun on his back drove the car over and jumped out of the car and said. What the hell are you getting in the car? There is not enough space for them. Leave all the people who are used to exchange materials here, and don't take any of them. The one-eyed dragon turned his one eye and cursed. Duanlei felt relieved. If the one-eyed dragon insisted on taking these women and children with him, he really didn't know what to do, because if he took them with him, their hope of survival after Duanlei's plan was implemented would be basically zero. Brother Li, do you trust me so much? You gave me the people before you even saw the goods. Seeing that the armed man hesitated and wanted to speak, Duanlei quickly asked. What am I afraid of? You will be in the same car with me in a while, and I just need to keep an eye on you. The one-eyed dragon looked at Duanlei gloomily. Ha ha ha. That's right. Brother Li is still smart, Duanlei quickly flattered him. Humph. Everyone get in the car and get ready to go. The one-eyed dragon waved his hand, and then said to Duanlei, follow me, kid, and don't leave my sight. Of course, Duanlei nodded, then winked at Lu Feng, and followed the one-eyed dragon into his off-road vehicle. The butcher stared at Lu Feng for a while with fierce eyes, then stretched out his right index finger and made a throat-cutting gesture on his neck, smiled sinisterly, and turned to get on the car. Lu Feng looked at the butcher coldly, without any reaction. After they all left, Lu Feng said to the women and children, don't be afraid, there is food inside, I will get it for you later. Lu Feng knew these people very well. Sure enough, when he said there was food, the fear in the eyes of these women and children was reduced a lot, and they stopped making a commotion, and looked at Lu Feng eagerly. Lu Feng jumped onto the roof and made a gesture to the place where Taizu and the others were hiding. This was the gesture used by Lu Feng and his expedition team, which meant that it was safe here. Then he jumped down again and said to the women and children, come and line up, I will count the number of people, and then distribute food to you. Hearing that there was food to be distributed. The speed of these people lining up was comparable to that of soldiers, but the queue was not very neat. Lu Feng counted carefully, there were 21 women, 51 children, and 72 in total, which was more than what they had exchanged yesterday. When Lu Feng finished counting the number of people, Taizu and Yunfei also drove back. In fact, they also saw those people taking Duanlei away, but they didn't know the specific situation, so they didn't dare to move. It was not until Lu Feng made a gesture that they felt relieved to bring those people back. Let everyone in the car get off, stand together, and then give them some food, Lu Feng said to the two. After Duanlei left, Lu Feng temporarily became the one giving orders. He would not listen to these two young boys. Taizu and Yunfei did not react to Lu Feng's commanding tone. Taizu was Lu Feng's subordinate before, so he was used to it. Yunfei still didn't understand Lu Feng's identity. In addition, he made a mistake before and exposed this place in a muddle. Now he is still feeling guilty, so of course he won't have any objections. After calling the people in the car down and standing with the newcomers, Taizu and Yunfei took out the food in the house and distributed it. Because Lu Feng didn't say how much to give out, the two guys could take as much as they wanted, and Lu Feng didn't know how much food was stored here. So these women and children who came here got a bargain and got a rare full meal in the end times. Although it was just some packaged food such as biscuits and braised meat, in their eyes, it was no less than delicacies from mountains and seas, a full banquet. Captain Lu. The guy in the car. Taizu thought of Lu Qiang in the car. Let him stay in the car. We must be ready to run away at any time. Lu Feng looked in the direction of the service area and said softly, that guy is going to make a big move. Doomsday Special Forces. Author, Huanjing Chengzhu. Chapter 47. Boss. It seems there are really no zombies there. When they were about to reach the service area, the young man in his 20s who was driving the car shouted excitedly. What are you yelling for? The one-eyed man slapped the young man on the back of his head. Don't I have eyes? The young man shrank his head and quickly closed his mouth. The one-eyed man looked at Duanlei, and there was some concern in his eyes. How many people are there in your camp? Not many, Duanlei smiled, thinking that there were only a few. Without getting the exact number, the one-eyed man stopped asking, and directly asked someone to drive the car into the service area, then jumped out of the car, turned around and looked around, nodded and said, it's cleaned up pretty well. The one-eyed man meant that all the zombies' bodies were burned. Duanlei laughed in his heart. Where did the bodies come from if they didn't even kill them? The zombies here just moved to a new home, but there was no trace of strangeness on their faces. He walked up to the one-eyed dragon and said, you can take as much of the supplies here as you want, including the vehicles here. Anyway, we still have. Halfway through, Duanlei quickly closed his mouth, subconsciously looked in the direction of Jianguan town, and then pretended to walk aside as if nothing had happened. The one-eyed dragon saw Duanlei's expression, and his heart moved. He also looked in the direction of Jianguan town. Duanlei saw the one-eyed dragon's actions and walked over with a panic. Brother Li. Now my promise has been fulfilled. I have something else to do. I'll leave first. Duanlei's eyes wandered a little. The one-eyed dragon looked at Duanlei deeply, then turned around, and suddenly laughed and patted Duanlei on the shoulder. Ha 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 ha. Of course. We have a happy cooperation. Maybe I will have to trouble you in the future. It's okay. No trouble. No trouble. If you want to find me in the future, Brother Li can go to Wu village again. Duanlei smiled and then turned and left. The moment Duanlei turned around, the one-eyed dragon's face became extremely gloomy. He coldly watched Duanlei run to a car, smash the door, start the car, and then leave the service area, as if there was a monster chasing him behind him, and the direction he was heading was Jianguan town. Come here. The one-eyed dragon waved his hand to several people, who were the leaders of several other camps. They were also enhancers, including the butcher and Ho Kun. What do you think of that kid? The one-eyed dragon asked. Not bad. Quite generous, actually let us pretend. Haha, a slightly fat middle-aged man laughed. Not bad. Have you ever thought that if they only have these supplies, would they be so generous? The one-eyed dragon asked angrily. What do you mean? Another thin man with glasses asked. They must have more supplies, and much more than this. We are just picking up things that they don't want. It's a pity that you are all so happy, the one-eyed dragon said gloomily. Then why did you let that guy go? Why don't you catch him and ask where their supplies are hidden and then go and rob them? The thin man said in confusion. Humph. Just now, this kid let it slip and looked towards Jianguan town. I estimate that his camp is probably over there, and the direction he left just now is also over there. The one-eyed dragon pointed to the direction of Jianguan town and said. Then what are you waiting for? Hurry up and chase him. The fat man who had just praised Duanlei for being good suddenly became anxious. Do you know how many people they are? Do you know how strong they are? Are you going to die rashly? The one-eyed dragon said this and the fat man stopped talking. There are not many of them. Only a few people. Hokan spoke at this time. Do you know them? The one-eyed dragon's one eye lit up. Yeah. Their leader is a very young guy who came to our camp before. He used a bow and arrow and his archery was very accurate. Hokan recalled that Lu Feng was not one of them before. I don't know why his own camp didn't want him, so he mixed with them. In addition to Lu Feng and the guy with the bow and arrow, they should have 3 other people, none of whom are enhancers. Only Lu Feng and that guy are powerful. Now that Lu Feng is not here, there should be only 3 or 4 people over there. Are you sure? One-eyed dragon asked. Yeah. Sure. At least I have only seen these few people, 2 of whom were in our camp before. Hokan nodded. I think it should be about the same. Think about it. If they have more people, why would they go to such trouble to exchange with us in that broken village without any defense? And why do they only want those women and children who we think are burdens? Yes. They are afraid of attracting some powerful people that they can't control, so they want some people we think are waste. This also shows that they have a lot of resources, so much that they can give to those wastes, and Hokan and the guy with the bow and arrow should be their strongest combat power, so they assign one to each side. Look, they don't even have the manpower to guard here. I just saw that some things here have been moved away. It should be them. If they have more people, they can move them all away. There are plenty of cars here, which means they don't even have people to drive. Didn't the butcher say that there were only 4 people and 3 cars going to their camp? It seems that they really don't have many people. Everyone was analyzing the situation at once. The one-eyed dragon was listening and thinking. Finally, he looked in the direction of Jianguan town and sneered, Humph. Let's go over and take a look. 4 people will watch here, and everyone else, follow me. We still need to watch here, a guy asked tactlessly. Nonsense. Don't you want the resources here? What if we are thinking wrong? Damn it. You have a pig brain. The one-eyed dragon knocked on the guy's head and cursed, also. Get a few trucks to drive over, so that you can't take the goods when you see them. When the one-eyed dragon and his team drove out of the service area, there was already a convoy of more than a dozen trucks, and they were rushing towards the direction of Jianguan town. Duanlei drove the car towards Jianguan town. He looked both ways while driving, remembering every fork in the road he saw. When he was close to Jianguan town, Duanlei drove the car to the side of the road and got out of the car. He picked up a stone and walked around the car, smashing all the lights except the 2 headlights. After listening carefully to the movement in front, Duanlei got back in the car, drove the car forward for a short distance, got out of the car to listen to the movement, and then continued to drive forward. Because he had not really seen the scale of zombies in Jianguan town, he could not figure out how many zombies there were. When Duanlei stopped the car again, there was a faint roar of cars behind him. Duanlei got out of the car and looked back. A row of light columns were approaching in his direction. Haha. I was fooled. If you didn't come, I would have to spend a lot of effort. Duanlei smiled at the light columns, then returned to the car, turned on the lights, and drove forward. Duanlei drove while carefully observing the front. He knew that he had entered Jiangguantown and might encounter a terrifying zombie tide at any time. Less than a minute after driving, a group of zombies appeared in front of him. Under the illumination of the car lights, the dense zombies made Duanlei, who was used to seeing zombies, feel scared. He quickly braked to stop the car, then pulled out the pistol from his waist and shot at the zombies. The crisp gunshot broke the silence of the night, and made the zombies that had already discovered Duanlei even more violent. They rushed towards Duanlei like a tide. Duanlei quickly turned off the lights, turned the car around, and sped away along the way he came. "Boss! There are gunshots?" "Ah," the young man driving the car shouted, and then a slap made him shut his mouth. "I'm not deaf." "You're talking too much. Drive quickly. He's spotted us and is firing a warning shot at his people." The cunning one-eyed dragon instantly guessed Duanlei's intention, and then Duanlei's car lights went out, which confirmed his guess. "Hurry up. Drive faster, go to the place where the car lights were last on." "Humph. Damn it, you're playing with me. You're still far away," the one-eyed dragon laughed triumphantly. Duanlei used the faint starlight and previous memories to drive the car back along the original route. Behind him was a rioting zombie tide. At this time, the mutant zombie was very angry. He was a mutant zombie king with 100,000 followers. He was honestly training at home and didn't provoke anyone. How could someone dare to run to his home and shoot him? This is simply a naked slap in the face. Although our zombies' faces are a bit ugly, we can't just hit them, right? Why don't you just not look? Fortunately, the assassin's gun skills were not very good, and even those stupid guys on the outside were not injured by him. However, even if no zombies were injured, he had to get back this place, otherwise he would not be able to afford to lose this zombie if the news spread out in the future. So, under the roar of the mutant zombie, the nearly 100,000 zombies surrounding him all rioted and rushed to the place where the gunshots were heard. As the saying goes, there are endless people above 10,000, but now there are a full 100,000 zombies. Long-distance observation and close contact are definitely two different feelings. Fortunately, it is night now, and these zombies are behind Duanlei, otherwise when so many zombies suddenly appear in front of a person, that person may be directly scared to death. Duanlei looked at the approaching lights in front of him, feeling a little anxious. According to his memory, there is still a distance from the first fork in the road. He must reach there before the convoy on the opposite side passes that fork in the road, otherwise he may not be able to leave. Looking at the series of lights ahead, Duanlei's mind changed, a smile appeared on his face, and he murmured, "I hope you are a smart man." Then he turned on the headlights, stepped on the accelerator, and rushed towards the convoy ahead. Doomsday Special Forces. Author, Huanjing Chengzhu. Chapter 48. Boss. That guy is driving towards us, the young man finally learned a lesson this time. Instead of yelling, he said softly and gently. Bang, he was hit on the head again. "You haven't eaten the damn thing? You're talking like a bitch, keep driving. I want to see what this guy wants to do." The young man closed his mouth with an aggrieved look. He secretly vowed that he would never speak again in the future. Naturally, the one-eyed dragon didn't know that his slap made him mute. He stared at Duanlei's car closely, guessing Duanlei's intention. The cars on both sides were approaching quickly. At this time, Duanlei's eyes lit up. The fork in the road had appeared in front of him. He finally caught up. Without saying a word, he lowered the passenger window and then picked up the car. Bang! Bang! Two bursts of shots from the pistol shattered the two headlights of Cyclops' car. Then he turned the steering wheel and drove into a side road, and soon disappeared. "Stop the car," One-Eyed Dragon shouted. Then he looked at the direction Duanlei disappeared and said with a frown, "What does this kid want to do now?" The young man closed his mouth tightly and looked ahead, pretending not to hear. thinking that he could not speak or he would be beaten if he spoke. "Pa," a slap hit him on the head, "are you humming deaf? I'm asking you a question," the one-eyed dragon cursed. The young man turned to look at the one-eyed dragon, and 2 lines of tears flowed down his cheeks. "I don't know." Because Cyclops' car stopped, the convoy behind also stopped. They also saw Doomsday's car turn to the side, and they all guessed Doomsday's intention in the car. The one-eyed dragon tilted his head and thought for a while, then suddenly patted the car door. "Drive. Keep moving forward," the young man did not dare to neglect, and quickly stepped on the accelerator. Although their car headlights were shattered, fortunately, the basic safety behind them was they were all large trucks, and the lights shining on them barely allowed him to see ahead. "Humph. Boy. Are you trying to trick the tiger away from the mountain with me? Grandma's fault. You are still a little young, but I won't chase you." "What will you do?" the one-eyed dragon said to himself. "Boss. Does Y really want to run away?" Although the young man did not dare to speak, there were 2 people in the back seat, and one of them was not afraid of death. "Humph. 2 bursts of fire knocked out 2 of my headlights, and it was while the vehicles on both sides were moving at the same time." "What do you think of this guy's shooting skills?" asked the one-eyed dragon with a cold snort. "Quite accurate. At least I definitely can't." The man who was not afraid of death continued to seek death. Bang, a voice that was very familiar to the young man driving the car sounded, "You humming pig brain? Since his marksmanship is so accurate, why didn't he hit people and light up the lights? Didn't he just want to lure us all away to save their lives? Camp. Yes, yes, yes. Boss is wise." The man who was looking for death quickly touched his head and flattered him. The companion next to him looked at him like an idiot, then leaned back on the chair and looked ahead. After the one-eyed dragon's car started moving, the convoy behind it also followed. Because the young man was afraid of being beaten, he drove the car very fast even though he could only look ahead with the help of the lights from behind. "Humph. When we find their camp, all the supplies there will be mine, ha 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 ha. I will have a big meal then." The one-eyed dragon looked ahead, his one eye shining brightly. It's just that this time the people in the car have long memories. No one said anything, they all looked ahead seriously, as if they had already seen the supplies the one-eyed dragon mentioned. At this time, the road their car was driving happened to be on an uphill slope, blocking Jiangguan town. The Cyclops pointed ahead and shouted, "Hurry up! My food is right in front of you." The young man stepped on the accelerator, and the off-road vehicle finally climbed to the top of the slope, and then dived down. Squeak, the harsh sound of brakes sounded. With the help of the light of the large truck that had just climbed up the slope behind them, they saw the dense zombies in front of them. Looking back, the number of zombies seemed to be endless, stretching to the sky. "Is this delicious?" The young man looked ahead blankly and asked in a murmur. However, he was not beaten this time because the one-eyed dragon was also stupid. He suddenly found that the food he had been shouting about now turned out to be him, and it was delivered to his door on his own initiative. The butcher was following closely behind their car. At this time, he also saw the group of corpses in front of him, and because of his the field of vision is wider, allowing him to see more. Without any hesitation, the butcher opened the car door, jumped out of the car, turned around and ran, shouting loudly as he ran, "Get out of the car quickly and run for your life." The butcher knew clearly that on this narrow road, big trucks like theirs would not be able to survive at all. It's better to turn around. By the time you turn the front of the car, you'll have already been swamped by the tide of corpses. Ho-kun, who was in the same car as the butcher, followed suit and jumped out of the car and ran away. The people in the car behind looked at each other in shock as they watched the 2 of them running back like bereaved dogs. "What's wrong with these 2 guys?" the fat man asked with some confusion. "Is there Godzilla in front of you?" Because they haven't climbed to the top of the slope yet, they can't see the zombie wave yet. The people behind also got out of the car, but they did not run with them. They just shouted to the butcher and Håkon, "What's going on? Why are you running? Zombies! There are zombies ahead," Butcher and Håkon shouted without looking back, and soon they disappeared into the darkness. Bah! What's so scary about two cowards and a few zombies? We have so many strengtheners, why don't we just bring food? The fat man spat on the ground with disdain and said with disdain. "Let's go. Let's go and have a look." The guy next to the fat man waved his hand and ran up the slope, and the others followed him in a mess. When they saw the scene on the other side of the slope, they finally understood who was delivering the food. At this time, the one-eyed dragon's car had been submerged by the tide of corpses. Only the one-eyed dragon and the young man who was driving ran out of the four people in the car. The two people in the back seat must have changed their names to Food. Run! What are you looking at? Waiting for snacks, the one-eyed dragon shouted at the group of idiots in front of him, "If you want to die, grab a handful of salt and sprinkle it on yourself and lie aside and wait. Don't block my way." The young man looked at the one-eyed dragon and secretly admired him. At this time, the one-eyed dragon could still think of the detail of sprinkling salt. His mind was really meticulous. Otherwise, he was the boss. It seems that he still needs to learn more. However, if he wanted to have the opportunity to learn in the future, he had to run quickly, otherwise he would be just short of a handful of salt. Thinking of this, the young man had unlimited power in his body, and he lowered his head and followed the one-eyed dragon desperately, running towards his saltless end. Watching the one-eyed dragon and the others running over, a group of stupid birds on the hillside finally reacted and turned to chase the one-eyed dragon. According to the definition of survival, they had to run faster than this one-eyed man at least, so the chance of survival would be greater. Fortunately, all of these people were enhancers, so they quickly left the zombie tide behind. After running for more than an hour, they finally ran to the service area. The four people who stayed in the service area were playing cards out of boredom. Suddenly, they saw a group of big guys running over in a mess, and they couldn't help but be stunned. hurry up and get in the car." "Retreat," the one-eyed dragon said breathlessly. After running for so long, even the enhancers were a little overwhelmed. "Boss! Don't you want these supplies?" One of the four people who stayed behind pointed to some supplies piled on the ground and said. The one-eyed dragon slapped him. "Yes, yes, yes. Do you want to live? Let's go. Brother Lee. What should we do? Should we just run away?" asked a leader of another camp. "Go back to the camp. Everyone, go back to your own camp, take your people and run quickly. It will be difficult for us to run away. We still need people, but we have to run fast. Give up everything except food and weapons." The one-eyed dragon thought for a while and said, "When the time comes, everyone will leave from Highway 4, and the people we meet will be together. The chance of survival will be a little higher with more people. There are too many zombies. Okay. Everyone, go back to your own camps and meet on Highway 4. The zombie tide is not fast, and we still have some time," the leader of a camp shouted. "Okay. Everyone, act quickly," shouted. "Those who can drive one car and fill up the gas there. It will be useful later," the butcher shouted. They were originally in the front, but later they met up with the one-eyed dragon and his group. So, these people got busy. The driver of the one-eyed dragon was sent by the one-eyed dragon to monitor the zombies. The young man who had been beaten naturally did not dare to refute and drove out obediently in the off-road vehicle. When the one-eyed dragon and his friends arrived at the service area, Duan Lei had already driven back to Wu village. Lu Feng ordered Taizu and Yunfei to rest, and he was waiting for Duan Lei's return at the window. Seeing a car coming, Lu Feng guessed that it was Duan Lei and hurriedly called Taizu and others. Duan Lei got off the car without any hesitation and said directly, "Everyone get in the car and prepare to evacuate." The zombie tide is coming. Lu Feng actually had a vague guess of what Duan Lei wanted to do, but he didn't expect Duan Lei to actually do it, and he returned here unscathed. He looked at Duan Lei with a little strangeness. Gathering all the people in Wu village together, Duan Lei divided the people and cars. Taizu and Yunfei still had one car each. He drove Hurricane with Lu Qiang, and the big tanker was handed over to Lu Feng. He parked the car he drove back in front of the house. Duan Lei left a few words on the windshield, using some military code to tell Wang Feng the approximate direction of his departure. After preparing everything, Duan Lei and his team finally left Wu village and drove towards their unknown future before dawn. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Doomsday Special Forces. Author, Huanjing Chengzhu. Chapter 49. The sky was about to break at dawn, and a hint of fish belly white appeared in the east. Duan Lei's motorcade turned on its headlights and sped towards the Taikang camp. Captain Lu. How many people do you estimate will follow us in the Taikang camp? Duan Lei said to the walkie-talkie. Wang Feng had placed one walkie-talkie in each of his cars. Even if this kind of walkie-talkie is not charged, there is no problem in using it for a month, not to mention there is a spare battery, and the current situation is urgent. Duan Lei can't save money. I don't know. I guess half of them would be good. After all, they have never seen those zombies. Lu Feng's voice came. When I see it, I'm afraid it will be too late. Duan Lei sighed softly, thinking of the shock he felt when he just saw the corpse tide. Unless you really face the terrifying zombie tide, you will never realize the impact of that kind of picture on people. As a member of the expedition team and an enhancer, Duan Lei thinks that he has dealt with zombies a lot, but at the beginning of last night when he saw the tide of corpses, his mind was almost blank. The endless tide of corpses with no end in sight is so despairing. When hundreds of thousands of zombies move, they are like silent icebergs. Although they move slowly, they will destroy everything along the way. Swallow it all, making it irresistible. Xiao Lei. Don't call me captain, just call me by my name. Lu Feng's voice came. After Duan Lei heard it, he suddenly felt that his mood was not as good as Lu Feng's. At least Lu Feng was still in the mood to care about the title at this time. Problem. Haha. Okay. Lu Feng. Do you want to make a bet with me? Duan Lei said with a smile. What are you betting on? Lu Feng's voice sounded a little confused. I bet that when we leave Taikang camp, there will never be more than 100 people left behind, Duan Lei said with certainty. Why? Bet or not? Why are you so sure? Do you want to bet or not? It's blocked. Just take the gamble. Don't deny it when the time comes, Duan Lei said with a smile. I'm talking about the road, Lu Feng shouted angrily. Ah, Duan Lei looked up and saw that there was a fork in the road not far ahead. To the right was the Taikang camp. However, there were some roadblocks on the right fork in the road. With the dim sky, he could vaguely see that it was the Taikang camp. Several cars were parked in the middle of the road. Duan Lei frowned and stopped the Hurricane far away. Then he took out a grenade from the car. After getting out of the car and walking a few steps forward, he opened the safety pin and squeezed it hard before throwing the grenade towards the roadblocks. Boom! 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 A series of explosions sounded, echoing everywhere in the quiet morning. Duan Lei showed a sneer, returned to the Hurricane, and then said to the intercom, I'll drive over first, you wait for me to pass before following, stay away from me. How do you know there is a problem with the roadblock? Lu Feng asked. This roadblock is too crude. There are just a few shabby cars. They can't even stop an ordinary large truck. They can just crash through it. It's the end of the world and no one will feel sorry for the car, Duan Lei replied. So damn cruel, Lu Feng suddenly broke out in a cold sweat. If Duan Lei hadn't been there, maybe it would have really hit him with a tanker truck, and the consequences would be. Duan Lei stepped on the accelerator, and Hurricane rushed over quickly, knocking aside the remaining car wreckage after the explosion and clearing the road. Fortunately, when you said it was blocked, you were referring to the road, and not to our bet, otherwise I might have lost, Duan Lei said into the walkie-talkie. What should I say? Lu Feng was still scared, his voice trembling slightly. Who do you think made this roadblock? Duan Lei asked. It must be that bastard butcher, Lu Feng said through gritted teeth. He remembered the gesture the butcher made to him when he left, and the stern look in his eyes. I don't think the butcher should be responsible for this, Duan Lei said slowly. What do you mean? Lu Feng was stunned. There are a lot of doubts that prove that the butcher has nothing to do with this matter. Although he is very smart, I don't think the butcher will know your habit of hitting cars, Duan Lei said. This roadblock is obviously aimed at you. Duan Lei's words made Lu Feng's face instantly darken. The car he drove at the Taikang camp had a bumper installed on the front of the car. It was originally intended to deal with zombies, but after installing the bumper, Lu Feng discovered it's also effective to use this bumper to clear some of the roadblocks that occasionally appear in the middle of the road. So every time he encountered a small obstacle blocking his way, Lu Feng would directly and savagely bump into it. This was not only to save trouble, but more importantly, perhaps to vent his suppressed emotions in the apocalypse. And those who knew about his habit were all his team members. As for the person who set up this roadblock, Duan Lei didn't need to explain, he could guess it: Goya. Lu Feng never expected that Goya, who had always behaved as honest as Taizu and was loyal to him, could actually set such a clever and targeted trap. Goya. You bastard. You will suffer later, Lu Feng said through gritted teeth. I think it's better not to clarify this matter when I go back later, Duan Lei said. We are pressed for time now and there is no extra time to deal with personal grudges. You'd better explain the situation directly later. If you are willing to believe it, just follow us and leave. If you don't want to, it's actually better, staying here can delay the advancement of those zombies. Okay. I will listen to you. But I will definitely not take that bastard with me, Lu Feng said after being silent for a while. You don't have to worry about this. Even if you want to take him with you, he probably won't have the guts to follow you. Duan Lei laughed and then sighed. Hey. In fact, I don't even know where to go now. Big cities may have even larger groups of corpses, and the resources in small places are not enough for us to consume. Just take it one step at a time. You can't just sit back and wait for death anyway. Lu Feng thought about it but couldn't come up with any good ideas. That's right. Just take it one step at a time. Duan Lei looked back at Lu Qiang, who was still evolving, sighed, and continued to drive forward on the Hurricane. When he arrived at the Taikang camp, Lu Feng parked the tanker truck far away from the camp and then got into the Hurricane. After what happened just now, he did not dare to drive the tanker truck directly into the camp. If a bullet hits the oil tank, he won't be able to survive even if he becomes an evolved person. Arriving at the gate of the camp, Lu Feng stuck his head out of the car window and took a look. When the sentry guarding the camp saw Lu Feng, he quickly opened the gate of the camp. Duan Lei kicked the accelerator, and Hurricane entered the Taikang camp, while Taizu and Yunfei's car was left outside the camp. Where's Goya? Lu Feng jumped out of the car and the first thing he did was look for Goya. Captain. Didn't Goya follow you out? The expedition team members who came to inquire looked at each other. He never came back, Lu Feng was stunned. No, replied in unison. Forget it. Ignore him, Lu Feng waved his hand, gather everyone in the camp immediately. I have something to announce. After hearing this, everyone looked at each other and then split up to call for help. After more than 10 minutes of hustle and bustle, more than 2,000 people from the Taikang camp all appeared in front of Lu Feng. Because it was early in the morning, most of the people were still sleeping. Lu Feng looked at Duanlei, who stayed in the car but did not come out. Duanlei nodded, so Lu Feng turned around and shouted to the crowd. We don't have much time now, so I'll make a long story short. There are hundreds of thousands of zombies rioting in Jianguan town, and the zombie wave will come here soon. Now we have to leave here. I believe that if you are willing to leave with me, pack your things immediately. I'll give you half an hour, and we'll leave as soon as the time is up. Buzz. Although Lu Feng had said this once before, only a few people heard it at that time, so his words still caused a panic among the people in the camp. Everyone was whispering to each other and talking about it. Lu Feng frowned, anger appearing on his face. I will not repeat what I said a second time, and I will not explain to you or answer your questions. I will only wait for half an hour. After half an hour, I will leave. If you don't believe what I say, you can go back to sleep now. In fact, Lu Feng's reputation in Taikang Camp is quite good. Although there are some levels in Taikang Camp, many people are hungry for a long time, and many women rely on selling their bodies in exchange for food. But at least no one here dares to blatantly carry out incidents such as robbery, rape, and murder. Compared with the chaos in other camps, Taikang Camp is generally relatively orderly among post-apocalyptic survival camps. Moreover, Lu Feng himself has always appeared in front of everyone in the camp with a very sense of justice and a generous person, so after Lu Feng finished what he said, a large number of people began to disperse and prepare their luggage. In fact, these people have nothing to deal with. Bedding, clothes, and other non-perishable things will be almost everywhere after the apocalypse, and no lunatic will pay as much attention to appearance as they did before the apocalypse. Dressing is something that needs to be considered after eating. It is impossible for a half-starved person to hold your legs and say, "Sir, I haven't eaten in 3 days. Have mercy on me, give me a crimson tie." Half an hour passed quickly, and those who decided to leave were all ready. Lu Feng took a look and found that about half of the people decided to leave with him, and 4 of his team members actually chose to stay. Among them was Fang Jiaoqiao. Lu Feng looked back at Duanlei, who was sitting comfortably in the hurricane armor, and understood why Fang Jiaoqiao chose to stay. However, Lu Feng had no intention of looking for Fang Jiaoqiao. On the contrary, he felt a sense of relief in his heart. Doomsday Special Forces. Author, Huanjing Chengzhu. Chapter 50. Captain. How do we go? A team member ran over and asked. Lu Kai. Do we have enough cars? Lu Feng asked, because he had never thought about leaving after setting up the camp before, so he had not made any preparations in this regard. The car should be enough, it just needs a squeeze, but the gas. Lu Kai shook his head. Lu Feng suddenly realized that since the camp was built, they always drove 1 or 2 cars out every time, but when they came back, there were basically 4 or 5 cars. So the number of cars was enough, but there might be some shortage of fuel. Although there is still some spare oil, it is for the expedition team. Under such a comprehensive transfer situation, those few barrels of oil are simply a drop in the bucket. Lu Feng looked at Duanlei, and Duanlei nodded. Lu Feng breathed a sigh of relief, turned around and said, "Go straight out of the camp. There is an oil tanker. The key is in the car. Go and drive it." Lu Kai was overjoyed, took the key and ran away. Lu Feng said to another team member, "Li Shan, find someone to bring all the cars that are about to leave and get ready to refuel. Remember, as long as the bus, if that's not enough, a big truck will do." Duanlei walked out of the hurricane, stood next to Lu Feng, looked at Li Shan's leaving figure and said, "It seems like we won't be able to get out within an hour. The zombie wave isn't coming so soon, is it?" Lu Feng looked at Duanlei. "It's not a zombie wave," Duanlei shook his head, "it's the people who went to our camp yesterday. They are all enhanced, so even though they came into close contact with the zombie tide yesterday, they probably won't die unless they are stupid enough to want to destroy those zombies." It's not that far from the service area. Even a first-order enhancer like me can run back in about an hour. Once there, transportation won't be a problem, so, we'll definitely see them again soon. Lu Feng was startled. Then you go first, otherwise you may be in danger if you meet them. No. It has nothing to do with me, but you. Duan Lei shook his head. We? Lu Feng asked curiously. Yes. It's you. Although I used them to detonate the zombie wave in advance yesterday, it was because of their own greed. I made them mistakenly think that I had a camp in Jianguan town, and there were many resources there, so he was driven by desire and plunged into the zombie base camp. Duan Lei said calmly, I have never let them go to Jianguan town from the beginning to the end, so they don't dare to trouble me. There are some things they can do, but they must not say anything. And your trouble is? Duan Lei pointed at the oil tanker driving into the camp, this. I think other camps are the same as here. They don't have enough fuel reserves, so I guess that most of the survivors in other camps we will see later will be on foot. By then our purely mechanized force, I'm afraid it's impossible not to attract attention. You mean they might steal our car? Lu Feng looked murderous. No. It's not possible. It's certain. Duan Lei shook his head and said, under the threat of life, people can do anything. Do you believe it? When the time comes, as long as someone incites you a few words, you will surrounded by a sea of angry people. Lu Feng thought about it calmly and sighed. Duan Lei was right. If he really met people from other camps, a small amount would be fine. If the number of people increased, the situation Duan Lei mentioned would almost certainly happen. Then, what should we do? Avoid them, Lu Feng frowned. It's unavoidable. Duan Lei pointed to his surroundings. There are mountains on these two sides, and Jianguan town is on the east. We can only go to the west. Highway 4 is the only way to go. We and they have to go there. How do you hide? There are only two ways. Duan Lei looked at Lu Feng. What can I do? Lu Feng's eyes lit up. First, if they want the car, give it to them. It shouldn't be a problem for us to keep a third of it ourselves. Time is running out now, so I guess they won't push too hard. After all, a fight would not be beneficial to anyone, so we can concentrate our important resources, such as food, on just a few vehicles. Duan Lei looked at the car that was refueling and said, the second one is a bit risky, but if it succeeds we can survive without any damage. What can I do? Just kill the chicken to scare the monkeys. You are a third-level enhancer, so you will always be a bit of a deterrent to them. If someone covets our vehicles, if anyone dares to make any provocation, you will directly kill him and tell anyone who dares to approach. Kill them all. It's just that although doing this may silence those with ulterior motives, it may also cause the situation to get completely out of control. How you choose, it's up to you. Duan Lei finally sighed and handed the choice to Lu Feng. Lu Feng stared blankly at the vehicles waiting in line for refueling. He was silent for a long time. Until an hour passed and more than 30 buses had been filled with fuel, Lu Feng still had not made up his mind. Oh. Let's be prepared first. We will tell you when the time comes. Maybe we are lucky and get out before they arrive. Duan Lei patted Lu Feng on the shoulder and said. In the past, Duan Lei had a very bad impression of Lu Feng, but now Lu Feng seems to have really changed. At least he is so embarrassed now, more for the survivors in the Taikang camp who are willing to leave with him, rather than for himself. It would not be difficult for him to escape by himself. Although it would be miserable to wander outside alone, compared with life, it is obviously still acceptable, not to mention that as a third-level enhancer, he could join a camp in a different place. It's still not a problem. Even if you don't have as much power as you do now, at least it will be easier than ordinary people. Lu Feng looked back at Duan Lei, nodded silently, then climbed onto the tanker, took off the walkie-talkie, and threw it into his off-road vehicle. Duanlei looked at Lu Feng's back, raised his right hand and rubbed it on his head a few times, then turned around and returned to the hurricane, driving the hurricane out of the camp. Listen up. This zombie riot is also known to other camps. Maybe we will meet people from other camps later. Then you all follow my command. Don't talk nonsense or waste time, because there are more than 100,000 zombies waiting for a dinner behind us. Lu Feng suddenly jumped on the roof of the off-road vehicle and shouted condescendingly to the people in the camp. Concentrate all our supplies into 5 vehicles, and then all the combatants will get on the vehicle separately. Try to make sure that there is at least 1 combatant in each vehicle. All strengtheners will get on the first vehicle. No matter what happens after that, everything is under my command. Do you have any questions? No. After hearing Lu Feng say that other camps would also be evacuated together, the survivors of Taikang camp truly believed what Lu Feng said before about the 100,000 zombie tide. Some of the people who originally planned to stay began to run away. I went back to get my things and wanted to join Lu Feng's motorcade. Bang! Lu Feng took out his pistol and fired a shot into the sky. Stand where you are and don't move. He looked coldly at those people who were just thinking of leaving now. I gave you a chance, but you gave up on your own. Now that you want to leave, you have to find a way on your own. Since you have chosen not to trust me, I have no obligation to protect you anymore. After speaking, Lu Feng put away his pistol, waved his hand and said, "Let's go. Keep an eye on the armed men. Anyone who wants to get into the car will be shot on the spot." Yes, thousands of people responded uniformly. Duanlei saw everything Lu Feng had done and couldn't help but secretly nod. Lu Feng was right in not allowing the people behind him to join. Like this, the former chose to stay, but the latter felt that the crisis Lu Feng said was real, so he wanted to leave again. People are typical wallflowers. After joining this kind of people, if something happens, they will not only not be able to help, but will mess up their own position. They are typical pig-like teammates. Bringing them will only cause trouble. If they are normal, forget it, but bringing them with you at this time may get you killed. More people. And preventing people from joining later can also give those who decide to join first a sense of superiority, which invisibly improves the cohesion of the entire team. After experiencing this incident, after meeting people from other camps, regardless of Lu Feng, whatever the decision is, these people should be completely obedient. Seeing that Lu Feng had entered his off-road vehicle, Duanlei stepped on the accelerator and took the lead in driving towards Highway 4, with Taizu and Yunfei following closely behind Duanlei. The mighty convoy drove out from the Taikang camp. When the convoy left, those who chose to stay truly felt fear. They desperately chased the car behind them, trying to climb up. There were 2 fast runners. Even caught up with the last car. They desperately tried to open the car door, but were shot directly by the armed men of the car. The clear gunshots and the 2 bloody corpses made the other survivors stop and looked at them with regret. The retreating convoy let out a desperate cry. There are always some people in the world who choose to wait and see when they encounter something. They wait until others verify it first before making a decision. But this time they did not expect that when they finally made a decision, they had already lost it. The power of choice. Fang Jiaojiao stood in the camp and stared blankly at the vehicles and the crying crowd. At this moment, her heart was blank. Since the end of the world, everything she had done was to survive, no matter if she was Wang Feng's woman, it doesn't matter if she is Lu Feng's woman. When Lu Feng asked the survivors in the camp to make a choice, she also wanted to leave, but because of Duanlei's presence, she chose to remain silent. She mistakenly believed that Wang Feng was also in that car. Just because I didn't come down because I wanted to see her. She knew that Lu Feng had seen her, and she thought that Lu Feng would take her with him when he left, because she was both an enhancer and a beautiful woman. But what she didn't expect was that Lu Feng would take her with him until the end. At that moment, he didn't even look at her again, and just left. The moment Lu Feng's car drove out of the camp, tears burst into Fang Jiao's eyes. She felt that she had been abandoned by the world. The last words Wang Feng said to her unexpectedly rang in her ears. A voice sounded from the side, "There are some roads. Once you have walked through them, you can't look back. It seems that we are all walking this way." Fang Jiao looked at the people outside the camp and murmured softly.